Yeah.
Okay, so there we go. We've got 14 in the waiting room, so I think a few more will be coming in, I hope. Boom. So we've got 8:13, got a couple of minutes to go. I'm going to suggest people go on to speaker view. And security.
How do I do that?
No, there should be something called view on the top right hand corner of your panels, and you just go to speaker view, then you'll see the speakers coming in.
Yeah.
Okay. So Val, if you could go to share screen now, I think. So I can just see where to let people in. Yeah, we got 21 in the waiting room now.
Hold on a moment, it's gone stupid again down the bottom. Why is it doing that, I wonder?
You want to be on slideshow at the top and start from
There.
Then from beginning.
Okay.
Okay.
I just need to hide that. Oh, it's gone. I think it'll show up on the recording, you see.
What's that?
Yeah. You know, my screen where I can see you are screen sharing.
I've got something on the left as well. I've got a white column on the left.
Has that gone now?
It's gone.
Yeah, that's just because I was trying to bring up how you get rid of this.
Right, I think you nearly ready, Val?
Yeah, hold on. I need to get rid of that. Just a second, sorry. Screen.
I think you get into trouble if you let people in before we're ready to start.
Yeah, is that okay?
That's okay.
Is everyone just seeing that? And
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
great.
That's good.
So that's the start one.
Okay. Now I've just got to see where the chat is. Where's the chat? Yeah, where is the chat?
When you bring up your bottom, you know, the icons at the bottom, it should be along there.
I've got chat. Yeah, I can find it. Yeah, see it now. Okay. You all right, Sal?
Good to go.
You all right, Rob? Rob, you okay? You're on mute.
Sorry, yeah, I'm feeling okay. Let's do it. Let's move forward.
Okay,
but when
let's go.
I'm speaking, I can't
Good
see
luck,
my
guys.
Sorry. All right, I'm gonna take out the enable waiting room.
Someone in the chat.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the first of these sessions of the British Schools Library Network. You're very welcome indeed today, the 23rd of November, and we'll just wait a little bit for people to come in. People are coming in. Keep an eye on the chat, please. And as you come in, please sign in and let us know where you are. My name is Andy Homden, and I'm the CEO of Concilium Education, and we are bringing you this first session of the British Schools Library Network today, this Thursday, the 23rd of November. Val, if we could have the next slide, please.
Sorry. Okay, that's a good start. There we go. Sorry.
Well, I hope everyone can see that now. And thank you, Val, for putting that forward. As I said, my name is Andy Homden, and the reason why we've put this together is last year, 22, 23, 21, 22 as well. We were invited by Fabicia and COBIS, the Federation of British International Schools in Asia, and the Council of British International Schools to give a number of connected webinars for librarians, and we enjoyed it. Rob, Sal, Val, and I all believe that the library in the school should be at the very center of what we do. What I suggest you do is, as we get going, switch to speaker view so that you can see us all as we speak. I will invite people to speak as we go along. I'll be keeping an eye on the chat and bringing in questions. And first of all, I'd just like to ask Sal and Rob and Val to introduce themselves. Val, you've probably had contact with because she's the person who's been sending out all the emails. So we'll start with Val. Val, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Andy. Nice to meet you all, and thanks so much for joining. And as Andy said, I'm the administrator behind the team here. So if you have any questions at all after the session, please feel free to reach out via the admin email address, which you've probably already had, because I'm sure you've had several emails from me already. So hope you enjoy the session, and thank you for joining.
Okay, Sal, over to you.
Hi, everybody. It's good to see some familiar names popping up in the chat there. So hi to everyone, some old friends. Yeah, I've been working in libraries for a long time, currently taking a bit of a mini break. But as Andy says, libraries are still very close to my heart, and I can't let go of the passion for everything that they bring. So hopefully that will show as we head through the session.
And it's passion, it's what it's all about. This is what we've been picking up, the enthusiasm with which people take on their duties in the libraries. And indeed, in the feedback we've already had from Val's emails over the course of the last few days. Rob, over to you.
A pleasure to be with you guys. My name is Rob George. I'm head of libraries at the Alice Smith School, and I've been here since 2010. I work with the secondary campus mostly. And it's a pleasure to be here working with Concilium. Nice to see you.
Great, Rob. Thank you very much. Well, why BSLN? Well, as I said, we conducted these webinars last year for Fabicia and COBIS, and we thought it was a good idea to carry them on. People seem to enjoy them and get something out of them. And so the background is that we think it's time that something like this happened for libraries and librarians, just to bring us all together on a global scale. We know that there are other organizations, but we feel that we've also got something to offer and hope that you get something out of this session today. Later on, we'll tell you more about our plans for next year, but without any further delay, I'm going to hand you over to Rob, who's going to do the first of the sort of training sessions on library literacies. And after that, we'll go to Sal, who will be talking about organizing the perfect author's visit to your library. So over to you, Rob, and let's find out more about library literacies.
Thanks, Andy. An hour for the whole session is tight, so let me get started. Here, I wanted to reflect on the educational literacies that we hope to develop in our learners in 2023. And in so doing, to see if I could present a developing consensus in the body of knowledge out there, and to help us develop an approach for our schools. Now, to make sense of this, we need to think about what we mean by information literacy, or my preferred term, information fluency. But what sits under that umbrella term? Many things that I read purport to define information fluency, to me, are defining media literacy, which I believe is only one facet of information fluency. And if I just generally reflect on the information sources we now expect our learners to access, I think we would all agree that they are now much more diverse and scattered. I would find that if we ask our students to complete a task that requires them to source information, most of them will Google it. And if we're lucky, they will be thoughtful about which sources they choose from the search results. And experience tells me that it's only with cajoling that they will search the library's subscription sources from the library website, as that involves more effort. So here, I will consider what literacies we hope to inculcate in our students. Now, as I read my first set of notes for this presentation, I was shocked to realize that I had omitted the traditional definition of literacy. And in addition to that, I guess we can consider critical thinking to be a long-established literacy. But as we consider information fluency, I'm guessing that most of us would prefer to separate the traditional critical thinking from the information literacy, albeit that they have a very significant commonality. So the traditional literacy that I have in mind is usually considered to be the ability to use language, to read, to write, to listen, and to speak. And whilst there is an expectation that our English teachers will lead in a technical sense, it seems likely that we would all accept that responsibility for this lies broadly with all classroom educators and indeed at home as well. Now, when I searched to find and compare definitions for critical thinking and information literacy, I was surprised, and perhaps I should not have been, at the similarity of language used. Now, I'm thinking that whilst traditional critical thinking skills remain as relevant as they always have been, that the similar information literacy has a more specific focus on the educational scene in the aftermath of the information explosion that online sources have made available. I will not focus on traditional literacies further here, as I assume they're well established in your educational wheelhouse. So let me move on to what I'll refer to here as the modern literacies. The term information literacy emerged in the 1970s and really started to gain traction with the ALA's definition for it in 89. And it can be seen to have become more globally recognized with IFLA's Alexandria Proclamation of 2005. And then in 2016, a statement relating to the importance of media and information literacy was added to the UNESCO web portal. And for me, that really established the term's formal acceptance on the global educational stage. So whilst school librarians will be well versed in information literacy mechanisms, my experience is that the majority of teaching colleagues, whilst recognizing the need for authority in sources, do not emphasize these skills in their classroom practice. So I would like to think that we could recognize the school library as a key hub for information fluency. And with that in mind, let's think about the pertinent subgenres that we might like to embrace. For me, as I've already indicated, the preferred overarching term is information fluency. But when selecting the key components that fall underneath that, finding a commonality in terminology is more contentious. And whilst there is some inevitable overlap, I would quite confidently include information literacy, media literacy, and digital literacy. Can we go back, Val, one slide? So one by one, let me start here with information literacy. In the OECD's 21st Century Readers document, they emphasize the difference between the 20th century and 21st century information sources, being that, generally speaking, in the 20th century, young researchers would have been usually given pre-coded and carefully curated content specifically for their audience. Whereas in the 21st century, it's about constructing and validating knowledge from a plethora of sources. So for each of the components of information fluency, I'm choosing to break them down into focus, scope, and skills. I've done this as there is inevitably so much overlap for the three components. So, information literacy, the one we as librarians have been with for a long time, I'm seeing the focus primarily centering on the ability to find, evaluate, and use information effectively, regardless of the format, digital or non-digital. And I guess a lot of us will recognize those as what, in my mind, I would call the big 6 skills. And I guess nearly all of us will have heard of the big 6 model. In terms of scope, I think information literacy encompasses a broader range now, encompasses a broader range of information sources. That does include traditional print materials, but includes the databases, academic journals, and digital resources online, whether they are the ones which are more controlled that we promote, or just wider internet searching. With information literacy, the skills emphasizes critical thinking skills related to assessing information's credibility, relevance, and reliability. Next slide, please. So let me unpack what I'm seeing with media literacy. And this was my confusion in some ways. I think these things are the same, but different. Okay, they're just putting on a different lens. So if we talk about media literacy, my feeling is that that primarily concentrates on understanding and critically analyzing media messages and its content, which can include print, broadcast, and digital media. Again, staying with media literacy, I think the scope encompasses various forms of media, such as newspapers, television, radio, film, and all digital platforms. It addresses the techniques used in media production and the impact of media, both on individuals and society. The skills for information literacy, I think, involves the ability to deconstruct and interpret media messages, to recognize media biases, and understand the influence of media, again, on culture and public opinion. Next slide, please, Val. So here we go. Digital literacy. Yes, maybe a confusion of literacies. So for digital literacy, I'm seeing the primary focus addressing the broader use of digital technologies and information in a digital environment. The scope for digital literacy encompassing a wide range of digital skills, including the use of computers, software applications, online communication tools, and navigating the internet in general. And for the skills for digital literacy, I would say it involves not only technical skills, but also the ability to critically evaluate digital information, to understand online safety and security, and engage responsibly in digital communication and collaboration. So those are my main literacies. Okay, so on to the next slide, please, Val. So I then started to ask myself, who should be responsible for, who has responsibility for information fluency in an educational setting? And I guess the obvious and inevitably true answer is that all educators and indeed all families in support of their child. I guess we might expect English and the humanities subjects to have more influence with respect to information literacy and media literacy. And whilst we might expect computing or ICT specialists to take a lead with digital literacy, the definition I shared is so general. Once again, it naturally falls to all taking any responsibility for the education of the child. And then I started to ask myself, well, who should lead this? What documents guide us? And that's where I started to run into some quite rocky ground. Because from what I see in the UK documentation, there is no clear overarching guidance for the inclusion of information literacy, media literacy, and digital literacy. These literacies are more clearly recognized in the IBO documentation, but the guidance on their management is actually not as clear as I would have anticipated. And I think, as ever in the library zone, and I'm not Australian, I'm British as I say this, but the Australians, they're much more on it, with these skills clearly managed in their curriculum's general, what they call the general capabilities. Next slide, please, Val. So, having said that the Australians are on it, here's a graphic that, and you can access through this through the links in the slides later. But here's an infographic that I've taken from the Australian holistic general capabilities. And as somebody from the British system, I would say I really wish our national documentation had something similar. Then it would be so much easier for us, our educators, to feel an understanding of these modern literacies, and perhaps of the most importance, to have a common language to refer to. Next slide, please, Val. And this is a diagram I like. This is from the OECD's Education 2030 framework. And the title for this from OECD is What Do Children Have to Learn? And whilst it does not specifically mention the information fluencies in the graphic, I see them as being a core skill of competencies in this interwoven presentation of the educational process. And I would have to say I really like that. And finally, it did also occur to me that part of the confusion is the inconsistent use of language, and that perhaps even the word literacy is being misappropriated in its use here. But there again, maybe and probably not. I will leave my musings there and will be interested to hear your thoughts and reflections. Thank you, guys. Over to you, Andy.
Thanks very much, Rob. Can we have the next slide, please, Val? Thank you very much. Well, Rob has put into this presentation a number of links that you might find useful, and we'll be sending not only the recording of the session, but also this presentation in the next day or so. So we hope you find these links useful as you develop your own ideas and research your own ideas for this particular topic. But a number of comments were coming in during the talk that Rob was giving there. Amber, could you just unmute yourself and tell us what you are thinking about the ethical side of things? As Rob was talking, you were making comments about that. Amber.
Pardon me, I had to step away for just a moment. What was the last thing that you said?
Okay, Amber, welcome. Thank you very much. As Rob was talking there, you were making some comments about the ethical side of things as well when we were considering these library literacies. Perhaps you'd like to expand on that a little bit.
Well, my understanding is based on the American Association of School Libraries Standard Framework for Learners, which can be accessed online. And I can also share the PDF link here in the chat. But when I think about that ethical use, part of it is staying focused on issues around copyright and giving credit where credit is due, and having our students understand, even from a young age, some of these concepts and how to cite sources. And those are also things that currently I'm working with pre-K through grade 3 students. And we are a British curriculum school, even though we're not considered a British school. And I have been surprised, most of my colleagues from the UK are unaware of sort of the value of a school librarian and what a school librarian does. Well, administrators everywhere are the same. But even we were doing a research project with grade 3, and I brought up that, oh, we need to teach the students how to cite their sources. And the teachers were kind of like, oh, no, we don't really think they're ready for that yet. But in the US, they start, excuse me, teaching students how to cite sources in kindergarten, if they're lucky enough to have someone on staff who realizes the importance of that. And then that's also, of course, building those skills that they will need later in their scholarly journey, pardon me.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with you. So what you found is sort of some reluctance to engage with these sorts of skills, which are so important in this day and age for children so young. But you think that that is possible and indeed important from an ethical point of view and from the development of these literacy skills. Thank you, Amber. Rachel, you've said you agree that the situation in the UK is confusing. Rachel, are you able to say a little bit more about that from what you found and from following on from the comments from Amber?
Yeah, I think so. I'm in a UK school, independent school, but I'm also studying to do an MA in library management, and one of the tasks I had was to create a bibliography on teaching information literacy, and so I chose Australia to look at, and just the difference is incredible. You know, the fact that they have teacher librarians and they're sort of seen as equal to teachers. It's such a mixed picture here. I think the way it's going here is very much it's reading for pleasure. There's very little opportunity to get involved with the information literacy, and it just depends what school you're in and whether the administration actually understand the full role of the librarian. And yeah, it's quite difficult, I think, to convince the leaders that you can do more than encourage reading for pleasure, which is important, but it's not the full role. And yeah, that's all I was saying, really.
That's an interesting point, Rachel. This is something that we were coming across last year as we were going through with the COBIS and the Fabicia webinars, that it's important for the senior leadership team to understand the role of the librarian, and perhaps that lack of understanding is holding the development of certain aspects of your work back. Very, very important. And I think Sal is going to be speaking about that as well. Rachel, you just like to say a little bit more about that?
Well, I was just going to say one thing about the information fluency framework, which Australia published, is it's not just aimed at teacher librarians, it's aimed at the educators and the teachers, the leadership. So it feels like a really coherent document because it's for everyone. So it give, you know, when you read it, you can tell that this is something to educate the teaching staff as well as the librarian, and just brings in ways to collaborate. And I just think it's a fantastic piece of work, and would love to see something like that in the UK. But
thanks very much indeed, Rachel. And Rob, I can see nodding there. So Val, just go through the next couple of slides, because Rob has put together an amazing number of sources that we hope will help you, including a link to that general capabilities document in Australia, and other information from the IB, and so on and so on. So there is a lot out there, and Rob has curated this list, which we hope you will find useful when you go on to the presentation that we'll send. We're going to put a quick poll up there at the moment, just to ask you what you feel your situation is with regard to library literacies. So there's the question from Rob: to what extent are information literacy skills embedded in your school's curriculum? And then there's the possible answers. Learning information literacy skills is well established. We are moving ahead with driving information literacy skills. Some of the curriculum is actively focused on information literacy. And the bottom one, this might be a source of weakness. Just give you a little bit more time, just if you could vote for that. We got 6 in, 7 in. Keep coming in with your answers, that would be great. Interesting that we're looking at the bottom 3 here. We're moving ahead, or there are some areas. Just give you another few more seconds just to answer. We're getting some in that people are moving forward. Some people are thinking that actually one person thinks that learning information literacy skills is well embedded. Couple more seconds. If you could vote, that would be great. One or 2 more seconds, and I'm going to end it now and share the results with you. So there you go. 6% think, and that's one person only, thinks it's well embedded. 29%, we are moving ahead. And 41%, some areas of the curriculum is actively focused, and 24%, well, this might be an area of the curriculum that you need to engage with your senior leadership team in order to say, look, this is important, we need to move forward. So interesting. Thanks very much indeed for the answers to the polls there. That's great. We're going to move forward. So thanks, Rob, and thank you, Amber and Rachel, for your comments there. And we're moving into the area of author visits. So if you could move the slide forward, Val, and I'm going to hand straight on to Sally. And Sally, on organising your author or illustrator visit. Sal, over to you.
Hi, thanks very much. Interesting results there, from that poll. Lots to do, lots of convincing the school leaders that we count. Thank you for being here, everyone. We do all appreciate that you've made time to join us, and I'll kick off, as Andy says, with my part of the webinar. So one thing that I want to do is leave you equipped with some really practical tips that will make an author visit go off without a hitch. And in a way, that's the easy part. A lot of it is just being well organised, both before, during, and after the visit. The other part, kind of linked to what we've been saying, is unpacking the significance of having an author or an illustrator visit and work with the students. It probably seems obvious to us, but as we've been talking about, school leaders won't necessarily realise the impact on learning. So I think it's well worth us just unpacking why it's important. I mean, one obvious thing is that it gives us an opportunity to showcase our libraries, which I always love to do. But obviously it's the learning, I guess, that is key. Now, if we were all together right now, I'd probably make you a cup of coffee, perhaps give you a chocolate biscuit. I've got my provisions here, a lot ready for the chat part. But I can't do that, sadly. But what we can do is put some resources together and share after the event. I've actually kind of got some stuff ready, but I just want to see if there's anything we need to add to it when we bring together our shared wisdom. Anyway, so onwards and upwards. The significance of an author visit and how to really unpack its importance. Well, we know, we know that it creates empathy, it improves comprehension, blah, blah, blah. We could talk about that ad infinitum. But I think what is key is that it adds a personal connection with reading that perhaps a new face can bring better than or not better, in a different way to what the regular team can. So when students interact with an author, it establishes a direct link to both the written and spoken word. And as librarians, we can enhance that. I'm thinking of when we had a chap called Donovan Christopher come to visit. I don't know if you guys know him. It's AKA Rapper Man. And he goes everywhere with this bright red cloak on his back. It's quite wacky having a superhero in school. But he's passionate about what he does. He raps out his poems on acceptance, racism, tolerance. And while he was here, we took the opportunity to really sort of engage with everything that he stands for. So before we knew it, we'd got a makeshift stage in the library, and our own students were up there rapping out their poems about what was important to them. So I think meeting the creator of a book, not only, or a book of poetry, whatever, not only makes the reading experience more tangible, but it also develops a deeper love of that literature. And of course, it's loads of fun too, and that's always key in my mind. So yeah, definitely makes that connection. And it also, as you know, encourages creativity. It unleashes our children's imaginative potential. That example would work for that, but I'll just give you another quick example and talk about Corky Paul. Now, a bit of a name drop here because I've got to know him quite well, and I just can't resist everywhere I go saying, talking about my friend Corky Paul. But you'll know he does the Winnie the Witch books. And he's absolutely fabulous at encouraging and unleashing that potential. So when he came to us, he captivated the younger students with Winnie, but he also conducted workshops for GCSE and IB visual arts, and he guided them through the entire process of illustrating text. So, again, they had a fabulous opportunity to really understand at a deep level what's involved in the creative process, and tons of opportunities to be creative themselves. So it's also not a bad little tip for getting school leaders on board, because if you can get someone who works across the whole school, it becomes really good value for money, I guess. Right, so on to my next point, and I think the next slide, demystifying the writing or illustrating process for students is very important. I think by making the whole writing process more accessible, we see that in our students a kind of acceptance and a belief that they too can write at a really high level. It's not something that's too difficult for them. Someone who does this so well, and he does a lot of work in the UK now, as well as international schools, is Harry Baker. When he came to us, he seamlessly integrated into a week-long poetry writing scheme. He collaborated with the school on a unit that culminated in a showcase of both his and the students' work. It was a lot of planning. I won't pretend it wasn't for both the teachers and the librarians, but it was so worth doing. And it's essential to have the English team on board. They'll know the benefits, they'll want to do it, but like everyone else, they'll be busy. So but I guess what I'm saying is worth it. It kind of creates a real deep level of understanding and interest and enthusiasm that goes way beyond just the visit itself. However, having said that, if detailed collaboration with a particular faculty isn't possible, I think witnessing an author's presentation still provides valuable insights into the behind the scenes of writing as a process. Author visits, obviously, when they're well planned, are just massive in motivating reluctant readers. Teachers and librarians can help this process by doing the planning work and make sure that the author isn't coming in cold. I think meeting someone who the students know has crafted a story can make the reading experience so engaging and fun and exciting. I'll talk a bit more about that as we go on to discussing how to make a 5-star visit. So I've alluded to it, but I'll just say it sort of clearly. Connection to curriculum is key. That's a massive reason, huge reason for having authors visit schools. It might be as simple as a line into a specific book, or it may be tying into broader themes that the school's exploring. Without a doubt, it enriches the educational experience and makes learning enjoyable, which is what it's all about. An example from my own school, when we had Gail Clark come and visit us, and she was exploring environmental issues, and we were looking at the ocean world. So we turned the library into an ocean, as you do when you're a librarian, and connected to the whole primary curriculum. We made it a whole school thing. It was fabulous. I mean, typical me, we got carried away, and I got a remote control shark flying around the library, which the kids were desperate to have a go with. But, you know, making all those connections to the curriculum really, really made the visit worthwhile. And while it looked a little bit gimmicky, perhaps, having the shark, there was a lot of learning going on. I found more is more when we're making those links to curriculum. So Janice Santikhan, she writes a series of books about a little blue tuk-tuk. So we got a blue tuk-tuk and drove it around school to just kind of promote those connections to curriculum and get everyone on board so that the real learning could take place. Just being a little bit more sensible, I suppose, author visits provide real insight into the writing profession as well. And they actually offer quite a unique perspective for career advice. So I was quite pleased that we had a student send his first published novel to me recently. I thought, well, we must be doing something right in the library, because he was clearly like full of, you know, what he'd experienced at school. Right, I think I should probably stop on this first half of my part because I'll be running out of time. You know, hopefully, to sum up, having author visits will promote all literacy skills, listening, comprehension, critical thinking, so much more. So maybe what we'll have next is a quick poll, and then we'll look at how to make sure these visits can go smoothly. Is that okay, Andy?
Thanks very much indeed, Sal. That's great. Before we go to the poll, there were some lovely comments coming in the chat box, and Alicia had some notes about organising a book festival. That was amazing to hear about. Alicia, could you just unmute yourself and tell us a little bit more about the book festival that you organised?
Yeah, sure. So I'm at the British School of Brussels, and we organise every 2 years a book festival where we invite authors from all around the world. So generally we do this as 1 week rather than author visits throughout the year or whatever. So this year we invited 15 authors from various levels of experience and expertise. So we had some really new ones as well as some really established authors. And we, as a book festival committee, so it's the librarians of the school, 2 of us, and the English department and a few other key English literacy coordinators in the school. So there are about 5 or 6 of us in the group. We get together and then choose some authors that we might like to invite, and then we reach out to them. So this happens over a year, and basically we have them booked about a year before we invite them, before we actually want to have the festival, so that it's well planned, because well-established authors are really booked up for a long time. And so we have key people who contact those authors, and then we have the authors come. We have book breakfasts with the authors, book signings. We have various, it depends on what the author wants to do. So sometimes we have whole school assemblies, sometimes we have small group writing groups. We have a parent evening where the parents come with the older students and the authors present to them. And yeah, it's all week. We just focus on different things. So we always have a poet as well who comes and we have a poetry slam as part of our thing, which often happens just after it, because if it happens during the festival, it's too busy. So we get them inspired, and then afterwards it's, you know, the rolling on thing. We have bookmaking things that continue on for weeks or months after the thing. So it's really inspiring for the children. And we had the authors give feedback, and they all felt very sad and embarrassed to have to give their invoices because they felt that it was such a great experience for them, and that they'd been invited. So yeah, one of them even likened it. Yeah, one of them even likened it to, you know, the big book festivals that you have in England. I don't know what they're called.
And I think with the British School of Brussels, you've got such an amazing opportunity, a wonderful school, and just so much going on there. So I think as an inspiration for us, that's great as well. There are some big names, there are some other people, there are all sorts of things going on that people can actually pick up and share with each other. So I'm really grateful for that contribution, Alicia. I'm conscious that we're at 9 o'clock UK time. We're going to go on for a little bit, for 15 more or so minutes. So we're going to be open. We're going to keep it open. Hope you can stay with us, but we'll quite understand if you have to leave us. Everybody will have lots of other commitments in the day. But before we go on, I'll just launch the poll that Sal has put together. Which of these factors are most important for an effective school author or illustrator visit? Is it supportive school leaders? Is it a healthy book budget? A great author? Effective marketing? Or well-behaved and motivated students? There's your choice. Come on and let's have some answers to that, because I think getting sort of a background to what helps organising a visit like this, or indeed what makes anything work with regard to library development, is going to help each other as we go forward here. So we've got a lot of people think it's the supportive school leaders that's going to be very important, and that's coming out at the top of the range at the moment. Just going to give you a couple more seconds to do this. And then I'm going to close the poll. Here we go, and sharing the results here. Yeah, very clearly, it's the supportive school leaders that are going to be critical in making a success of an author's visit, and I dare say any other initiative that you wish to see as well. Okay, so I'm going to close that one down and ask Val to go to the next slide. And Sal, just to wrap us up, please.
Okay, so
sorry.
yeah, I think that's it. While we're on the right one.
Sorry.
Sorry, I didn't catch the lady's name. I was just speaking, but wow, that sounds an absolutely fabulous week's event. 15 authors managing that. I take my hat off to you. Wow.
Thank you. Yeah, it's very busy, but well worth it indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. Right. So sorry, Andy, go on.
Just to say, and it's these things that the kids remember. This sticks in their minds, and this is so important. Is those special events that you guys put so much time into over the course of your work, that the kids appreciate and the teachers really love as well, in my experience. So getting this thing together and saying to each other, yes, it is worth it. You can do it, and really, in many ways, the sky's the limit when you're thinking through what you can do for your library. Sal, back to you.
Okay, so what, if you give me another 5 minutes and I can
Go for it.
Oh, go with planning the visit. Okay, so how to make this visit really successful then? Well, like you were just saying, we need to be positive, we need to be enthusiastic, and we need to be tolerant, because perhaps other people won't always see, you know, the value in what we're doing. Hence why I was just trying to clarify those points earlier. So we have to build good connections with everyone, put in the legwork, sow those seeds. We need to make it a shared experience so that everybody feels part of it, with a salesperson, with a negotiator, with the event planner. As you all know, a librarian wears many hats much of the day. As we were saying, the big authors, they're booked up maybe a year, even 2 years in advance. But one thing I always think is crucial is to get our dates on the calendar. Okay, I think it's, for me, it's like, do that before anything else. Bagsy my spot on the school calendar, because there's so much going on and we need to think through what makes a good date. So think about what other events you want to avoid, what you'd like to coincide with, which year groups you'll focus on, and why is it that year group's turn rather than a different one's. Think about what's been studied at that point, who might not be able to make it, what subject areas will link in well. You know, you don't want to plan a whole visit for upper secondary school and then find that the GCSE and IB exams are going on, so that those 2 year groups are missing anyway. Small things, but think about, you know, if particular groups of teachers are busy at a certain time, try and build in what works for them as well, because we don't want them to be too exhausted to enjoy the event. So check with the curriculum leaders, are their topics staying the same for the next year, or if they're changing, and then see if the authors that you'd got in mind can perhaps accommodate topics that are new to them and might already be on the curriculum. So really, yeah, I'm exhausted. All I've done is say, let's get a date on a calendar, and we've already seen there's a lot to think about. So let's just start early with all our planning and promotion, okay? By the time everyone gets there, everybody should have seen the flyers, the posters, the emails, the school notices. I think when the author walks into the school, particularly, well, no, full stop. When the author walks into the school, they should feel like a celebrity. But if your budget is small and you know you can't afford to buy a big name, then let's make them big by the time they get to us. So I'd say drip in the promotion about the visiting author in the weeks leading up to it. Utilize every school communication channel that's available to you. Don't forget to get the PTG involved. Use the library ambassadors or the library monitors to promote competitions, activities, get them to get their own teachers enthused, and that amplifies all the cross-curricular benefits that I was talking about earlier. So we've got our date, we've started early with the planning, and again, this kind of sounds obvious, but have a really clear shared planning document. However, a word of warning, if you're sharing it early, make sure it says provisional in big letters at the top of it, because you don't want to get all the teachers wound up by kind of them having certain dates and events in mind, then it all changes anyway. So what's going to go on this wonderful document? Well, we're going to need the name and the contact information of the visitors, obviously, and the emergency information, dates and times. I can't begin to think how you could plan for 15. I think we had about 6, and that was plenty. But the venues, yep, you'll need your venues, booking. You'll need to know whether the people are staying full days, half days. You'll need agreement from the different department teams about their involvement. Add on there the travel arrangements. Think about accommodation, particularly if you're sharing your author with other schools, then you'll need to think, will you want to house them in a kind of place central to all the schools, or will you move the authors perhaps so that they don't have far to travel at all? Don't forget to think about catering and meals, subject always close to my heart. Note any special dietary requirements or restrictions. Make sure you don't abandon your author at lunchtime, because they can feel a bit lonesome, you know, in this new place. So if you've got last minute organising, just ask someone else to take them to lunch. Yeah, make sure that you look after them as well as you'd hope to be looked after if you were the visiting author. When Harry Baker came to us, and he was a sweetheart, but he was a bit lonesome on an evening, or I was worried that he was going to be. He came to us, I think, for dinner once, but he was far too young really to be interested by my company. So what we did was we arranged for a group of the young go-getting teachers to look after him and take him out, and he had a fabulous time, I think. Of course, make sure that your budget covers the cost for that. We can't expect the teachers or the author to be paying for their entertainment. So back to your planning sheet, budget and financial aspects needs to be on there as well. Don't forget liability and insurance. I think from the UK now, it's called a ICPC check that you need if you're working in international schools. Well, make sure that you found out what is required and make sure that's properly covered. I think I mentioned, didn't I? So we're going to need an agenda and a schedule, but remember things like staggered lunches if you're working across the whole school. Think about assemblies and make sure that, you know, every tiny detail is covered. Think about how many people will be at your presentations. If you can, do something for parents. Clive Pigg, when he came to us, he was fabulous. He did a session with the PTG that was somewhere between a coffee morning and a comedy night. And yeah, it went down a storm. And I think then, you know, you have a successful visit, and then the next year people are, you know, they know that it's worth investing in having an author visit. So what else? Yeah, book orders, book signings. Think about how you're going to source the books and build in time during the day for the authors to sell their books or sign their books. Maybe you'll do a book pre-order, or maybe you'll wait and sell it at the door. Think about technical requirements. Often I would find that people might say they don't need something, and then when it gets to it, they do. So again, my motto, more is more. So have your screens, your laptops, your microphones, your pens, papers, just basically get everything you might possibly need. Right, last thing really for me to talk about, two things, if I can just keep gabbling. So I know I'm gabbling, it's partly because I'm short of time. It's also a little bit because I'm nervous, if I'm honest, but let's keep going. Library displays, I think I love a good library display, both in the lead up, during and after the visit. Library displays, they look great, obviously, and that helps present your library well, but there's so much more than that. A good interactive display, I think, really enhances the learning. And of course, if you're enhancing the learning and looking good, you're going to have a higher status, you're going to have more funding, and life's going to be wonderful. So keep those displays going in the lead up, you know, to advertise it, but then also in the post event, because what we want is for the students to benefit long term. Okay, these visits should be fun, of course they should, but after all, we are trying to enhance their learning. So let's keep the spotlight on the authors and the illustrators' visits after the event, and displays are a great way of doing that and showcasing the work. Along with trying to, you know, you've had a good author visit, then let's get their work into the curriculum somehow. You know, be sure to thank the authors. I know Gail loves it when we send her students' work afterwards, and then she can use that on her own promotional websites and so on. And it's just nice to see, you know, that something's been successful. Okay, I think that's almost everything I've got to say.
I'm going to stop you there, Sal, because we're running out of time. And fantastic, all the information that you were able to bring through, and everything that was put in the chat while you were talking. There was an amazing amount of links and ideas and so on to back up what you were saying. So really fabulous. I'm just going to give a quick plug to what Sally has written about this. If you have a look, and I'll send you through Val the links here. We also publish a magazine called International Teacher Magazine. If you just search in Google for International Teacher Magazine, you'll find it. You'll find our latest editions there. And Sal has written a fantastic article with a click-through PDF of resources and a checklist to look at, the kind of thing that she was talking about. The particular thing there was that she was looking at the author's visit from the author's point of view and the author's perspective, an interesting one there. Val, if you could just go on to the last slide, please, and we'll wrap up.
Sorry.
Thank you. That's brilliant. So first of all, to say big thanks to Rob and Sal for the presentations. Hope you found them useful, and we'll be following up into 2023 and 2024 with 3 more sessions. There are other topics that are already coming through in the chat here, and perhaps I'll ask Hannah, if you're there still, you made a comment about something that we found to be very common last year and which we are thinking about providing more support for this year. You've been co-opted into your library as an English teacher, and suddenly you're there. You have to do everything. Would you like just to say a little bit more about that, just very quickly?
Hi, yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
So I've kind of done it on my own steam because our school is really quite small, and we have probably only about 30 books that are suitable for children 12 and up. So I'm kind of doing these 2 jobs, and as an English teacher, I've spent a lot of time in libraries, obviously, and I have a passion for reading and engaging it. So I'm just looking for any help, really.
Right. Well, we'll be back to you very quickly on this, Hannah, because it's a very common situation. So it sounds like you were a primary school and it's expanded and it's added on the secondary school. Is that right?
Yeah, that's what's happened. Yeah.
Very common. And it's your situation is a difficult one, but also one that's got fabulous opportunities. So I think Rob and Sal will be back to you, and indeed we'll get one of the points about organizing this this community, this network, is that we help each other. And that takes us on to what we're looking at planning for 2023, 2024. Another online opportunity with Sal on libraries and well-being. And secondly, into term 2 of 2023-24, managing subscriptions. One of the more technical sides, but a very important side of librarian work that people are dealing with, and getting some insight into how people are managing that is going to be useful, we hope. And perhaps, Hannah, something that will be of particular relevance to you is developing a balanced school library collection in the digital age. How do you go about it? Chat, resources, newsletters, and if you are interested, we are also going to be offering customized training and mentoring from Rob and Sal about how to develop your libraries. Some of you, of course, have gone way down the road with this. You're working in big, well-established libraries that are doing fabulous things, but some of you are at the beginning, and you perhaps might need some ideas, which we'll get from each other. But Sal and Rob are going to be available all next year to help with this. We are planning then to move on to 2024 to 2025, and to continue this service. We're thinking about, should we expand it to include more international librarians and not just limit it to a British schools library network. We started with the British because that's where we started with Cobis and Fabricia, and a word of thanks to Cobis and Fabricia for helping us to spread the word about this. We hope that you found this useful. If you've got any final comments for the chat, we'll leave that open. We'll be around for a few more minutes as well if you want to just to talk for a few more seconds or a few more minutes after this. But otherwise, thank you so much for coming in, spending your time and making your comments and being part of this. We're hoping to take this forward next year, and Val will be in touch with our next newsletter, our newsletter giving you links and ideas arising from this session. Thanks very much to Val, Sal, and Rob, and looking forward to the next time. We'll be having some dates up soon. So Val, if you'd like to stop sharing screens now so we can just see everybody, that's great. That gives you an idea. There's some great Nice to see some old friends from the past. Jackie Houghton, lovely to have you with us and to see you. Fabulous. Hi, Jackie. And Josh, I know that you've worked with Val before, setting up a library in Cuba at the International School of Havana. Nice to see you, Josh. And I noticed in the chat that there were one or two comments about getting links with suppliers and so on. So Josh is a library designer. He leads a team of library designers in the UK, and they've done a lot of work overseas as well. But we've also got representatives from a number of book suppliers and so on. I'm not sure if we've got Magrudy's here with us today. Magrudy's the fabulous bookshop in Dubai that I used to go into all the time, and which was one of the great suppliers to my school, the British School of Dubai, when I was there some years ago. So thanks. If you've got any other comments, put them in the chat box. Otherwise, it's been great to see you and looking forward to seeing you at the next time. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed.
Hey, everyone.
Just leaving things open for a little while, just in case anyone has got any questions. Don't hesitate to come on if you have a question for us right now. Otherwise, we'll be the relevant resources will start coming out in the next few days from Val. Okay. Thanks, guys. I'm going to close down the session now. Thank you very much for attending and looking forward to seeing you again soon. Been great to have you here.
Bye. Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Amber.